This sounds like I imagine people are going to say he's a conspiracy theorist for this, but you've probably seen the trend of influencers with higher body fat percentages, people in larger bodies, but I'm sure a lot of you would prefer that I call them something else less polite. Claiming to be fitness experts, healthy at their high body fat percentage, unhealthy for them to have a normal or lean body fat percentage, and that is not realistic or possible for them to lose fat. Some food manufacturers are paying online dietitians and other social media influencers to promote their products using anti-diet messaging. Okay. All right. Well, that's really scary to think about. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another video, and today we're going to talk about Atlas Power Shrugged, a good friend of mine, somebody who I initially found when we were doing the Ego Olympics, if you guys recall that. But I've always gotten along with Atlas because of his like unshakable nuance. I love it. It's like he'll call out bullshit over here, he'll call out bullshit over there. And I really, really try to stick with that, on this channel. I try to remain in the middle, give people a fair shot. And I saw the title of this one and I was like, you know what? I want to share this because this is very interesting. Why so many fat acceptance influencers are or have worked with registered dietitians and nutritionists. This sounds like I imagine people are going to say he's a conspiracy theorist for this, but let's see what he's got to say. Okay, slide one. You've probably seen the trend of influencers with higher body fat percentages. I believe they'd be preferred people in larger bodies, but I'm sure a lot of you would prefer that I call them something else less polite. Claiming to be fitness experts, they claim that not only are they healthy at their high body fat percentage, but that it would be unhealthy for them to have a normal or lean body fat percentage, and that is not realistic or possible for them to lose fat. Now, we know that the food industry is funding anti-diet and body positivity influencers, so that may be playing a role here. What? And we talk about that later. Don't come at me with the, believe, yeah. Okay. Don't come at me with this, you believe in conspiracies nonsense. This shit was in the Washington Post. What? Okay, wait. What am I going to search here? This is interesting as shit. This is actually kind of cool with the new AI overview of Google. So I'm just going to read that. According to a Washington Post investigation in April 2024, some food manufacturers are paying online dietitians and other social media influencers to promote their products using anti-diet messaging. The influencers may encourage people to eat sugary foods without guilt or push back against shaming people for their food choices. For example, cereal maker General Mills said it is said to be encouraging customers to not feel food shamed while also promoting its products. Okay. All right. Well, I would say this too, though, there are people who, and I'm not going to name names, but they talk about dieting, but then they're also not trying to, they don't like when people say that a food is bad. And so in a way, they're it's like calories in, calories out are the only thing that matter. Fine, whatever. I'm not getting into that. But they're kind of like, yeah, the seed oils, the diet stuff, drink it. All that matters is if you lose weight and blah, blah, so on and so forth. It's almost like they're somewhat defending these companies that have billions of dollars when we could really just say hey, just eat whole foods and, focus on your calories in versus your calories out, But the idea I think then is these foods help people focus on calories in, calories out. Whatever. That's really interesting. Holy shit. That's really scary to think about. Okay. Moving on. Something more interesting that I've noticed is that when asked why they're so certain fat loss is not possible for them, their answer is inevitably either that they've worked with a registered dietitian or that they themselves are a registered dietitian. And they put good faith effort in using the best possible tactics as agreed upon by the industry. And I believe them, by the way. I think they put in a good faith effort. But it seems that registered dietitians prevent fat loss. Why is that? Oh boy, let's go. It's really simple. Consider the following Venn diagram. It is possible to lose weight on any diet that produces caloric restriction. But to make that as easy as possible, you need foods that fall in the center of the diagram, satiating per calorie and palatable. I like that. So, satiation is a big thing. I mean, that's kind of the mechanism behind these diabetic drugs or kind of like weight loss drugs that we see now with like Ozempic, right? It's about not having, what is it? Ghrelin response, I think is what it's called. And then also palatable. Like, eat kale, lose weight. But like, dude, kale sucks. Like, objectively, it's horrible. Now, obviously, different people have different tastes. But for the majority of people, a very large portion of that category is going to be composed of animal foods, often meat, often of the red variety. And that's the issue with registered dietitians. They don't get to use the most useful tools for appetite control because the institutions which train them treat them as the greatest threat to health. Oh, baby, let's go. They have to work around the perimeter of the diagram, using either tasty foods that are unsatiating per calorie and thus requiring discipline to avoid overeating, or using foods that are satiating per calorie and not overly difficult to avoid overeating, but require discipline to stick to the diet and not go for something tastier. Okay, I think this is the thing too, though. Like, if we're talking about like a lot of red meat in the diet, something that is a very, very useful tool in satiation and palatability. You're going to think of guys like Paul Saladino, the carnivore guys, Liver King. And, the cool thing is Atlas is pretty vocal against those guys because, again, he calls bullshit out on both sides. But he's never going to deny the efficacy of red meat, which is, I think, what he's pointing at, that the industry is actually trying to deny that. Sure, some people like to be disciplined about their diet due to personal issues or lack of accomplishments in other areas, but let's be real, a lot of people are going to fail at fat loss strategy that leans heavily on discipline as a primary strategy, which is why a lot of registered dietitians conclude that not being obese is impossible and unhealthy. And they're not entirely wrong within the framework of their understanding of nutrition. A lot of people end up giving themselves eating disorders, trying and failing to get a healthy body fat percentage using a suboptimal strategy. Wow, that is a fucking cool take right there. That is very, very cool. So they are succeeding in realizing that strategically it is hard to lose weight. But they're failing because their strategy is wrong. This is good stuff, man. This guy can really write. I probably pissed off the entire political spectrum with that one, but it's true. God, I love you. Not every eating disorder is anorexia, but we don't have to treat them all the same way. Binge eating disorder and more mild forms of bulimia are just the extreme end of a spectrum that includes non-pathologized behaviors, such as diets with cheat days. Leftists, you're about to get mad at me in the comments. Make sure you read The Myth of Mental Illness by Thomas Saz first. I know more than you. Right-wingers who are mad at me for not telling them to just suck it up, wake at 0400 and eat less. If eat less, move more works so well, prove it by doing it without your weekly TRT jab from Big Pharma. God, dude. I love it. How great did I call it? This guy. Okay. Also, you're probably not actually right-wing. You've probably just been made to believe that you are by various psyops like radio country music. Oh, God. Hey, guys, speaking of country music, this is an excellent time to plug that I record music. It has been labeled as country, but I don't try to sing with a twang. I write all these songs myself. This last year has been going crazy good. I got 55,000 monthly listeners. This is going to be my sponsored ad, by the way. No other sponsored ad in here. 55,000 monthly listeners, and my top songs reached 250,000 streams on Spotify. I would love if you guys could check that out. Now let's move back into the video. Now that I think about it, libertarians are just probably mad at me too for trying to promote solutions to obesity, since obesity is so good for corporate profits. Who have I left out? Communists? They promote state-mandated fasting. So they'll get a pass on this one. Okay, I'll stop now. Anyway, back to registered dietitians on being incapable of losing fat. Dude, if this guy and Dr. Mike could get in a room together and just autism out, I would love it. Ironic, isn't it? The very education that teaches registered dietitians to try to help others with eating disorders makes them unable to save themselves. Because it is possible to be lean without being miserable, disciplined, and bulimic. But to make it happen, you have to stop arrogantly assuming that you know all the answers in the face of obvious physical evidence to the contrary. For everyone mad at me for fat shaming, I don't fat shame, but I will happily arrogance shame anyone who would rather be obese and lead to obesity than admit they don't know everything and seek better answers. I fucking love this. Okay, here's why. I always talk about the back squat and how incredibly demonized the back squat is for one main reason. The people aren't good practitioners in the back squat. And it's because the current meta around doing back squat and doing legs is not good enough. And I really pride myself on this channel specifically teaching people how to step by step progress into doing a back squat that will be incredibly effective for hypertrophy, general leg strength, and so on and so forth. I've talked about this a lot. And the number one thing I'll say is like, when people determine that the back squat isn't for them, it's a very high likelihood that they're just very ignorant. Not ignorant in not knowing what a back squat is, but really not knowing what proper movement is and not feeling it and not doing it enough. They check off the box, back squat, not for me. I'm going to go do something else. And God forbid they grow their legs on other machines, which is definitely possible. And then they point back to the back squat and they say, what a dumb movement. What a dumb movement to do the back squat when I got bigger on all these other machines. It's like you never really did it in the first place. So when he talks about this, this is the arrogance shaming and ignorance shaming that he wants to put out into the world. You are not observant of the whole process, of the whole idea around nutrition, but yet you make decisions based off of your arrogance. It's really good writing, man. This is fantastic. To make it realistic, you have to go to the forbidden section of the archives, or rather the Venn diagram. Only there is it possible for most people to find foods that they'll be happy to eat regularly that also fill them up before they eat excessive calories. Do not cite me on the studies of oatmeal satiety, for I have read the methods section and the conflict of interest declaration. In the real world, not paid for by Quaker or its Chinese subsidiary, and comparing them to fucking cornflakes. Red meat and eggs are unparalleled in this role. So now he gets back into that Venn diagram. He says, red meat and eggs are unparalleled in this role. And then he says, before someone says, oh, we don't treat restriction or good foods and bad foods. You're allowed to eat your favorite foods. I'm not talking about allowing. Do you tell your clients, hey, if you're struggling with an appetite, make burger patties and steak increasingly central to your diet until the problem goes away? I'm not talking about allowing. I'm talking about leaning on. You let your clients eat 3 eggs for breakfast alongside a bowl of hearty, healthy whole grains. You got to pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
3 or 4 times, maybe.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
And ditch the oats before you end up with tigers in your bloodstream or whatever orange glasses man says will happen. I love it, dude. He's just a troll. Oh, God, this is great. Now, I know I've pissed off even more of you because politics are one thing, but holy shit. People get passionate about defending their morning bowl of brown sugar and mush. The folks trying to get us to stay interested in pulling the lever for our millionaire so the other team's millionaire doesn't win should take notes from Big Oat. But I'm not saying you have to completely eliminate oatmeal if it really means that much to you. The irony of it, if you lean into meat hard enough, there's a good chance you'll actually be able to achieve the registered dietitian's goal of not cutting out the foods you love or feeling restricted all the time while also having abs. So yeah, I mean, basically like what I kind of touched on earlier is that there are people who are just like adamant about, tracking every calorie, calories in, calories out. But then at the same time, they're defending these millionaire on this side, and then, the other millionaire on the other side are the ones that lose. And it's funny, like, they don't need your argument. Like, Atlas has no sponsors. He might have like a barbell apparel sponsorship or something like that. I don't know, but he's bound to nobody. These are things that are just pure of heart. This is straight off of his mind. And, he's talking about like all these, big oat, big pharma, big macro tracking app to make it happen. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I love this. I would love to hear what you guys think about this. Are these people being paid off by the industry? I think Atlas beckons that question here. Definitely give this guy a follow. I realize that, hey, this is a piece of content that somebody else made, and I could not give them more credit here. But I find it to be incredibly interesting. I knew that this was going to be a good thing from him. And I appreciate you guys stopping by. I'll see you next time.